Hello, everyone. Very interesting day today. Thank you for being on time. Really appreciate your punctuality. Today, I'd like to introduce one of our alumni, Jacky, who is from, hang on a minute.
Baxter Healthcare.
So yeah, Baxter International. He's right now a business unit director. Okay. As usual, please keep your videos on. Mute your mics, keep all your questions to the end. It's very interesting today because he's actually going to be taking us a little bit down memory lane on his past career journey, and he's got a lot of experience on his own career journey, right? And so it's really good nuggets of truth to be sharing. Not only that, not only is he taking us down memory lane, but what he could have done better or done differently, which is really interesting. So without further ado, let me put the time to Ian to introduce Jacky further.
Thank you very much, Ting. Good evening, ESSEC students. As Ting has mentioned as well, we are very privileged today to have our own ESSEC Alumnus Jacky today as our speaker. He's currently a business unit director for Baxter Healthcare. So should you have any questions for our speaker, please do not hesitate to type them in the chat function of this Zoom session, and we will try our best to answer them during the Q&A session that will happen after the alumni speaker's presentation. Now, without further ado, I shall now pass the mic over to Jacky. Jacky, please.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for being here. So we're going to spend a little bit of time tonight. I called tonight because it's 6 p.m. already. So I tried to answer Ian's call that way. So he called me about a couple of weeks ago and asked me to present something to you about what I've learned along the way of my career, and asked me if I could share something a little bit about the industry I work in. And I was thinking, how do I make that interesting to a group of people at 6 p.m. on a Thursday night? So I came up with this, which is 7 things I wish I knew then. And then is when I graduated from, it was called at the time the Master in Marketing Management. I think it's called Marketing Management and Digital something now, because digital came along the way. That was a long time ago. I just calculated 23 years ago in Cergy in France. So what have I learned since then? It's not mind-boggling, but I wish you'll get something out of it. So I'll start with 2 disclaimers. So the first one is I don't know what I'm talking about. Just to be honest and transparent with you, I have not written a book about this. I have not studied it. This is just stuff I've been thinking for the past 2 weeks. And this is my experience also. I don't pretend that anything I'm sharing with you today is universal. You might not feel that way. You might not experience the same thing. This is things I've learned since I've been working. And I'll show you what my journey has been, but this is what I've been through and what I learned along the way. So if you're okay with that, that premise, I'll share with you the 7 things I wish I had known then. I wanted to show you a picture of me when I graduated from the ESSEC, but it was so long ago that pictures were not digital then. They were paper. And I don't have a picture of me from the ESSEC. So it starts 3 years later. So this is 3 years after the ESSEC. The ESSEC school, this is how I looked, and yeah, I was happy. I'm still okay, but I was happy at that time. So the way I'm going to do this, because as I said, this is not about, you know, like wise things I've thought about. This is more about my experience. So to ground you into my sharing, I'll start with telling you a little bit about my life, right, since the beginning, some context so that you understand where I'm coming from. So I'll start with my birth year, 73. I was born in Japan and quickly moved with my parents to France, where I grew up. So you can probably tell from the way I speak, I'm French. And I grew up there. I did my primary school, secondary, high school in France, graduated at 17. And because I was just good at math and science, I naturally entered into the engineering track. And I did my engineering school in France. Small school called CPE that barely anybody knows. But one thing I did before I graduated, because I had a sense that engineering was really fun, but I didn't know that it would be fun as a job. So I went to see the director of my school at that time and asked him if I could take a year off, which was not very common in France at that time, but he gladly accepted because he thought it was something that was done in other countries and the French were looking to do, and he said, let's try it. So we actually piloted it with another friend of mine. And for 1 year, I went to Japan. So I found a company that they had purchased a factory close to Lyon where I lived, and went there, said, hey, do you guys have a job for me in Japan? I wanted to travel somewhere. I wanted to experience work in a different country. And they said, yes. So they sent me in Japan, close to Osaka, for close to a year for some sort of an internship. It was basically a low-end job. I wasn't paid much, but I really didn't mind. And for about a year, I did engineering. So they put me on a job there. My Japanese was very hesitant. My English was okay at that point. Good enough to do engineering, and I worked on developing a model to help design assisted steering in cars, which at that time, I'm sorry to bring you so much back, but was not a common thing. Luxurious cars like Mercedes, Volvo had assisted steering wheels, but the common cars didn't. So that was something new. Was super exciting from the scientific point of view. Living in Japan at that age, at 23, was amazing. But I understood at the end of it that this was not what I wanted to do. Interestingly enough, and as I was there, I was only with Japanese, but they had another intern who was coming from the ESSEC school as well. He was doing the regular business courses, the bachelor's degree. And he got me thinking, because I saw that being in the business area, his understanding of the company, Koyo Seiko, and what it was doing and how the products interacted with the customers and the market was way broader than me, because I was just day and night into these formulas and that technology. I didn't understand what was going on. So it made me think about my career and what I wanted to do. So going back to France after that 1 year, I did two things. First, I had to finish my last year of school, but I tried a little bit of research. So in France, we have a thing that I've not seen in other countries, which we used to call DEA. I'm not even sure it still exists, which is some sort of A stands for applied. So it's some sort of applied research that lasts 1 year. You do basically a mini PhD for a year and see what happens. Did that. Again, didn't picture myself in a lab for the rest of my life. So I went to do the master at the ESSEC. So that was the year later. And that really confirmed my inkling that I had from that experience in Japan that business were way more exciting than engineering. So that gave me my first job, because after that, I went to work for Philips. I started as an intern at the end of my master's as a product manager covering Europe. And I was doing this. So I was responsible for lightings from a industrial or shop store point of view. So these things you find in stores up there. So my product line was round lights. It was defined by round, square, or long. And that's very similar to one of the products I did when I was there. Upstream marketing, very interesting. Did that for a few years, beginning of my career, right? Based in a small town in France. Very formative. Philips is a company that invests a lot in their employees, in the training, the knowledge, really exciting. And they even offered me at that time an opportunity to relocate to their HQ, which was in Eindhoven in Holland, which is, I mean, very close to France geographically, but a different world to a 25-year-old. Almost did it, but then Gambro, which is a company in the medical device, called me and offered me another job in Lyon, where I come from, which was interesting to me because it was a global position. Always been attracted by everything international, and also in the medical space, which even if I had never worked there, really sounded different and interesting. So I joined them, and same thing in marketing, product manager for a medical device. And this is what this company did. So I say did, and I'll explain you why that company doesn't exist anymore. But that's what they did. So they did devices to help treat patients with kidney disease. Many millions of patients across the world have some form of kidney disease. And when that kidney disease advances enough to the point where your kidneys basically don't function anymore, you need something to purify your blood, since you don't urinate anymore and you don't clean your blood. And that's such device that you have on the screen. I was hired to be responsible for a software that connects to these devices, monitors them, and provides data to the clinicians. So here, my dual education between ESSEC school and my engineering degree was really valuable because I could bridge the two things. Very exciting position I had there. And I stayed there a few years, learned a lot about the healthcare industry, which was so interesting from the beginning. Dialysis space, very unique within the healthcare space. Really found my home, I think, in that company. And that company also gave me the opportunity to relocate. That was 7 years after I started with them. So I was at the age of 34. I applied for a job in Denver, in Colorado, because I wanted to do two things. First, as I was working in global marketing, I understood that we were too far from the customer to really understand what was going on. And it was preventing us to really provide the support to the countries that they needed. So I wanted that experience. I wanted to go down closer to the customer. And if I could combine it with an experience in a different country, well, all the better. So that job opened up, applied for it. And so they hired me. I went to the US. And this one profoundly changed a lot of things in me. So I had that experience in Japan before, but going to the US with my family, I had a wife and 2 kids at that point. Relocating the family, discovering the way to work of the Americans in corporate America was interesting on so many levels. And also what it allowed, talking about career development, it allowed me to really accelerate my career. The American system in many companies, not all of them, is still one of the most merit-based system where you don't need to be 40 years old to be a director. You don't need to wait 3 years to be promoted. You do your job, you do it well, you show what you can do, and you're going to get opportunities. So that was such situation for me as Gambro in the US. And it allowed me to really try a lot of things and prove myself. Gambro was acquired by another company, another American company called Baxter in 2000, I don't know, when I was 40 years old. So Gambro ceased to exist, but I joined the other one by being purchased. And because we were now 2 product managers at the same level between the old and the new company, the other one won, but they gave me Latin America. So loved it, covered Latin America for a bit more than a year. And that also gave me an experience of emerging markets that I could translate when I applied for a job in Asia Pacific, where there was a very high growth into the Southeast Asia region. And one thing I didn't tell you, my first trip to Singapore was as a school trip with the ESSEC. So 1997, yeah. As I was doing my master in marketing management, our school trip, I say school trip with air quotes, we were serious about it, but it was fun. It was in Singapore at a time when it didn't look anything like what it is today. But I had a taste of what Singapore could be. We met some very interesting CEOs, and I mean, we did a lot of interesting stuff, meeting a lot of people, understanding what Singapore is in Southeast Asia at that time. I thought that was the best place. So I was waiting for that moment to happen when I can find a job in Singapore. And when this thing happened, I said, I'm going for it. Got the job, came here. So that was a few years back. First as marketing for the Asia Pacific region, then emerging Asia. I did a combination of things until 3 years ago. Yep. 3 years ago when I did apply for a local role. So after having done years of marketing in very upstream, close to development, then the global function, a regional function, a country function, and over various product lines, I decided that the time for me was to basically get really as close to the customers that I could and apply all of these theories and this knowledge that I had accumulated by being a marketer and a regional person supporting countries. So I wanted to prove to myself that everything I had been preaching was actually true, and I could deliver on it. So that's what I've been doing for the past 3 years. A lot of my colleagues and people see it as going down rather than going up. You know, like you think global is more prestigious than regional, than local. I've never seen it that way. And to this day, I'm really happy about the course I've taken, because it brought me a lot of perspective and understanding of how things work in the current job that I have, which typically people access to by being a salesperson, then sales manager, you do some marketing or finance, and then you become like a director of a business. I went the other route, and I think although it's not typical, it really gives you a lot of tools to work with in that role. So I'm doing this today. I'm having the best time of my life doing this, being close to the customers, understanding how the business working with a team very locally, and I'm based in the country I wanted to live in. So this is me. I'm 48. Hi, I'm Jacky, and this is me so far, and this has been my story so far. Okay, so as I said, that was my promise. So with that background now, I'm going to try to extract out of this little life I just showed in front of you some things I've learned through that time in terms of career development and impact on personal life. Not everything is about the job. That came from that thing. And to kick us, to let us start, I'm going to ask you to help me out here and go to the chat button at the bottom of your screen and give me your thoughts after what I just told you. What do you think was the most impactful event of my professional life? What in everything I just told you was the most important decision or the most important event that made me so excited about talking to you today? Not carrying on in engineering, traveling, working abroad. There's not wrong answers. Healthcare is an interesting one. I'll talk about that because I think there's some misconception. That's not something I've put in there, but the healthcare thing is an important thing. School trip to Singapore. Yeah, in a way, yes. Changing to health, Japan. Oh, I didn't tell you, I'm half Japanese. So yeah, I did work in Japan for a reason, but it's the Asian blood was already there. Thank you. Okay, so thank you for listening. I see you've been listening attentively. Okay, the answer is there, and I'll explain why, but it connects to this. That's one of the lessons I have from my life so far is working internationally will change you, subtext and your family. So yeah, so the most important event in my life was maybe you say traveling to Singapore as an ESSEC student was important because it put that seed in me, or working in Japan for a year put the seed in me, but relocating with my family in the US at age 34, I can remember, was a huge thing, because you can travel to a country, you can visit, you can go to Bangkok for a weekend, or even stay, in Australia for a month. It will be a very enriching experience, but never to the degree of actually living there. Living there with the good and the bad. And if you can, and I'm a huge proponent of this, anybody who says, I'd like to do this, but I'm not sure, I say go for it. Go for it. It's one of these things that if you don't do it, you will not miss it. It's fine. But if you do it, it will change you profoundly. Now, from a perspective of the professional aspect of it, the amount of knowledge of open-mindedness, because you have to be open-minded because you are the foreigner in a country. You are the one being different. It opens your mind. It forces you, even if you're not open-minded. And I'm guessing for all of you, because of the studies you're doing and where you're located, you have that already, but it stretches you. It forces you to understand yourself your culture, your preconceptions, your biases better. So it teaches you a lot about yourself. It teaches you a lot about where you're coming from, how others are. It forces you to be confronting all of these differences between you and the environment you're in. The other thing it does, which I wrote here, is communication skills. Because you have to sometime adjust to a language maybe you don't master. That was my case. When I went to the US, I spoke English like a French who learned English at school, which is not great. I had many phone calls where I had no idea what they were talking about because I didn't have visual cues, and it was really tough. But it drills things to a pure level where you have to be really good at communicating. If you're going to communicating in broken language, not understanding the cultural context, not understanding where they're coming from, it forces you to get really good at it. So it's a great school about everything, because it forces you to do it. The other thing in terms of career development, it's an accelerator. And I told you that not only because the US is an environment where if you prove yourself, they give you the opportunity in general, but it gives you such a breadth of experience. You can do the exact same job at home. It will multiply by 10, not by 2. It's something completely, it's a big multiplier effect. You build a network that becomes international. You build a network of people with different origins, and it makes you visible within the organization you work with. Would it be private, professional, or whatever organization, you become more visible to everybody. So definitely, if you have any sort of ambition and you want to climb the ladder or live interesting experiences, try it. Personal growth, I alluded to that a little bit, is that you learn a lot about yourself. It's tough. It's not an easy experience. And I was very grateful because when my company sent me to the US, they gave me like a few training sessions with a cultural coach in France before I left there to talk to me not only about the American culture and all this, but also how tough it is to go to a foreign country where you don't know anything. But it's really stupid stuff. Like I remember when I was in the US, banks are different, credit cards are different. You don't know where to buy shoes because it's different over there. Everything is different. So it questions everything. You learn, you question everything you assume was normal. And then you learn about yourself. You learn about being a bit isolated. Even if you go with your family, which is a huge plus. People who relocate with a family or at least a spouse do way better than people who relocate easily. That might be counterintuitive because it gives you an anchor, it gives you someone to share that experience with you. And my other point was the family, which can be a positive and a negative. And that's a little bit of the warning moment here is, as much as I love and I promote relocating and working and living in a different country, it will change you, it will change your family, because you, your spouse, and your kids maybe will live an experience that many others don't. And it will change you because you're living all of these experiences, you learn about the world, you gain perspective that people who don't leave the country don't get. No matter how much TV and shows you watch on Netflix, you will not understand another culture with a level of depth as if you live there. Because you know the details, you know what their daily life is, you know all the cultural little cues. To put you some context, right? We didn't have internet at that time, but half of the French TV was already American. It was already Hollywood, it was all the shows, it was Friends. So as a French person, I thought I knew the US. And actually, I had been traveling to the US as a tourist quite often until that time. At the age of 18, I flew to New York and I crossed from New York to Los Angeles on a bus for a month and a half. So I had been there, I talked to the people, but living there was a completely different experience. And understanding the culture of the people, how they interact with each other differently, how women are different in the quite male-dominated American psyche and the notions of self-reliance, of independence, and all the positives about the American culture were things that I never understood until I went there. Same thing happened for my wife. And for us being there together, having to confront that together, to make friends in a different culture where people make friendships differently, and my kids starting to grow up there. When we go back to France as a family, we see the disconnect with our old friends. So that's a bit of the negative thing. you basically evolve on a track that is different from all of your other friends and family that you left behind when you were gone. So I wouldn't give it away for anything. It's like the experience of having a child. It changes you forever. And it's always hard to talk to people who haven't had kids because they don't really understand what you talk or they pretend, but it's a bit of the same thing. It makes you different. You have to accept the good and the bad. So that's my thing about international. If you think about it, do it. And I know a lot of you are not from here, but I'll tell you one of the things I keep telling all the Singaporeans I work with. They always tell me, oh, I would like to relocate, but only to Japan or Thailand. I'm like, why? There's so many other countries. Or Hong Kong is another one. Any experience is good. It's more about you. It's not about where you go and how you're going to evolve and grow from that experience. So I'm in Singapore now, which is, and you see what I've done, right? I've done the US, and now and I've worked in Latin America, although I didn't completely relocate in Singapore now. I hope I'm not done. I'm realistic about my age and the opportunities that are offered to people. But once you've got the virus and you understand what it does to you, you keep doing it, I think. Okay, I'll come back on the questions at the end. And I'm going to take you to my second questions right now. Back to the chat. So now this is more about you. Now I'm going to talk less about this storyline, but okay, true or false? My opinion, your most important career choices will be in the next 10 years. What do you think? Wow, having a big consensus of, oh no, okay, we're evening out. Counting 5, 6 against 2. Okay, that's interesting. There's no complete consensus. That would be an interesting debate. I can see, like, all of you. Oh, okay. The false team. Oh, Ian. Okay, so I mean, again, as I said before, as a disclaimer, this is personal opinion, right? And also it's based on my experience. Oh, gender, yes, good one. I like this. Okay, so I do believe that what's going to happen until you're age 35 is maybe some of the most impactful career decisions you're going to make. Now, they're not the only ones, and there are some wonderful people who completely change their career or do wonderfully at age 45. But statistically, and if I look at the people around me, a lot of things happen at the beginning. However, that's not the lesson I have in me here that I wanted to share. This one is something actually I sort of knew or I wanted to believe when I started, and proved true, at least to me, is I always knew I wanted one thing when I started to work, which I wanted to work in Singapore, as I told you. I had that secret in me. It took me 20 years to make it happen, but I did it. And I can tell you, when you start at 23 in France, at the time, again, email was just starting, right? Thinking to relocate to that far away country with no reason for anybody to send you there was not an easy feat. I took my time and made it happen. And that's my lesson here is, the career happens in phases. It's not going to be that very nice line that goes from A, to B. There are going to be periods of acceleration. There are going to be periods of slow time. There are going to be opportunities. A career is a sum of opportunities, and they come when they come. You have to be ready for them, but they come when they come. And there's going to be also times where you want your career to slow down. Someone mentioned gender. Obviously, when a family, and that's not only a women issue, but when a family decides to have kids, you see things a bit differently. When your kids leave home, you start to see things differently as well, or other things, right? So it happened in phases. I do think the first 10 years are critical because you are still energetic, hopeful, creative. Things slow down a little bit. You become the wiser, but you put things maybe a bit too much in perspective. Especially if you work in a large corporation. I mean, if you're in a startup for your entire life, might be different. But I think you as a person will slow down. You have different priorities. The other thing too that I think is important is, and I observe it a lot in some industry, not all of them, but let's take where I am. I'm in healthcare. 90% of the people we hire from the outside are coming from healthcare. And I see all the same people rotating in, like going from this company to this company. After some time, if you stay in the same industry or in the same role, like you can be a specialist of oil or healthcare or like a production, like optimization specialist, you have so much knowledge in you from your career that completely changing career is something you can do by choice, but you lose a lot in terms of marketability if you choose to do so. So if you just don't know what you want to do, really, my advice would be try as many things as possible until you find your path at the beginning, because the lost opportunity is not so much. You don't know if you want to be, like a consultant or work in a company, or you want to be like you want to work for an NGO, or you don't know, just try it. And nobody will blame you for the beginning of your resume until much later. But be ready for the opportunity. I mentioned that before. Never think, and I think some of you have been in the industry already, but maybe I was very naive and more than you, maybe you're not. I had an impression that HR promoted people. HR doesn't promote people. You promote yourself, you find the opportunity, and HR will help you, support you, make it happen, maybe train you, but you have to be there when the opportunity comes. And that will be what makes your career happen. Connecting it to my life, I always knew what the next step was going to be. I prepared myself, I made it known, I was ready for there, it happened, I took it. So that's why you see in my life, sometimes I had to wait for 6-7 years for something to happen. Sometimes I was promoted every year for the next step because I was just there and it just happened. So be ready for it, but you don't control everything, and it's going to be a series of acceleration and slowdowns. Know what's important to you, and I really think the long-term thing is important. Self-awareness is something that we all have at different degrees. If you are aware that you're not very self-aware, maybe someone told you that, work on it. The sooner you know exactly where you want to go in the long term and what matters to you, the better. Ask yourself, when I'll be 65 and retiring and I look back, what will I remember and what will I be proud of? That works for your career, that works for yourself, but also for your job. What do you want to have done and accomplished that you're proud of? And last thing is discuss it with your spouse, especially if you have like a big dream that you want to get to. In my case, I wanted to live abroad, probably in Asia. So when I met my wife, girlfriend at that time, that was a discussion we had very early, because I realized that going abroad and leaving all your friends and family and parents behind is not an easy choice. She was game, we did it, and it happened. If your dream is to create your own company in 10 years, that's a huge impact on your personal life and family. Have the discussion now, not before you marry him or her and have kids. Personal advice. Okay, so even if you have the next step in view, you want to be the boss instead of the boss, know where you're going. Know where you're going, plan for it. That will make the opportunities become reality for you. Question number 3. What will be the most important thing about your job? So that's the 65-year-old thing, you're retiring or earlier. If you look back, what would have been the most important thing about your job? Why will you think that it was meaningful? Like that, yes. I like job satisfaction. I think it's important for all of us, as you put more answers, I'll just comment on this one, is to define what it means, right? What makes you happy about the job you have when you look back? Intellectually stimulated, have an impact, being happy. Oh, betterment of the world, yes. I want so much to comment on that, but I'm trying to keep track on my thing. Compensation and value creation. Okay. You need a minimum of money just for everything else to be possible. Okay, all good things, all good things. So all true. So when I put that question in front of myself a few days ago, I went down one level and trying to stand, okay, so yeah, I want to be happy. I want to feel like I'm making an impact. I'm influencing things. I don't want to work for a tobacco company, and I want to be happy to wake up every morning and go to work. But why does that happen to me? The conclusion I came to is this one, is the people you work with are everything. And I'll take just a second to address something that came from you in the chat already, is that notion of working for the better good, working for the bigger picture. I do work for a healthcare company, and I've been working for a healthcare company for 20 years. And I remember when I was at the ESSEC, I think we had a case study about Marlboro or something, and there was that thing about marketing to kids, marketing cigarettes to kids so that you hook them when they're kids and then they're customers for life, which was a brilliant marketing plot, but oh my God, was it evil. And we had that discussion about, like you want to work for an ONG or this and that. And we were young and dreamers and we didn't have to pay the bill. So that sounded fun. And now I work for healthcare, and we have that mission, right, that we put on. And for us, it's saving and sustaining patient lives. It's on every poster, on our website. Yeah, it's great. But honestly, that's not why I come to work every day. And that's not why when I retire and I look back, that's not why I'll think that I had a fantastic life. Yes, it feels good. And at times it is important. I know that we were doing the right thing. And when I meet a patient or when I hear of a patient and we completely change their life thanks to our products or the efforts we put in things, it's fantastic. But that's not what you think about every day. What makes you happy, what makes your career work, what will give you the most intense satisfactions are the people you work with. And I'll start with the career. Your boss is everything. It can be your boss, it can be maybe the management, but your boss is everything. So maybe the one little silly advice I have here, if you join a company that is the perfect company that matches your values and everything, and your boss is horrible, leave. Don't waste your time. For many reasons, because your boss will make you miserable if you don't have that chemistry and you don't have that relationship. But also your boss is the most important person in your life to get you to the next step in terms of anything, opportunities within the company, etc. So, and that's also someone you can learn the most from if you have that healthy relationship. So when you interview, you're interviewing your boss, basically, not only the company you're going to work for. That's obvious, but I wanted to state that at the beginning. Super important. I had another thought, but it escaped me. The other one is your colleagues, not only because you want to have a beer with them after work, but because they're going to be the people you spend the most time with aside from your spouse and your kids. They are here and you're going to spend all your day with them, hours, right now over Zoom, but hopefully physically very soon. So if you're going to spend so much time with them, get along with them. And the environment, the culture that you're in will define a lot. And the last thing is the day, and what I mean by your team is the people reporting to you. The day you're lucky enough to have people reporting to you, or that you can mentor, even if they don't report to you, if you're up for it. Management and managing people is not for everybody, but if you have the inkling, if you think you're going to like it and you try, the joy of helping people grow and making them happy and stimulated and challenged and grow is immense. These and the interaction will give you the personal recognition that all of us need at some level. We need to feel that we're worth something as much in your private life as at work. You will get it from people. The joy of coming to work and achieving something together and making an impact on society, on customers, on your company, on your team, will come from the people you work with. So invest in yourself. I'll talk about me as an example, not to point any fingers to any of you, but I had very low emotional intelligence, EQ, yeah, quotient when I started in life. Very shy kid, super shy at school. I've worked on that a lot because I understood that everything would be about the people, and you need to be able to be comfortable with people, understand them, what they tell you, what they don't tell you, so that you make an impact and you remember and you get that feedback loop to yourself and be happy. Again, personal opinion, there's nothing else than that. And there's the last person I want to mention is your mentor. If you're lucky to have a mentor, this is not something that was that popular in the back, in the old days, more popular now, especially in large companies, global companies. If you can get a mentor, so the mentor, just in case you're not totally familiar, is not your boss, is not someone related directly to your org chart or whatever, but it's a more senior person with whom you can have that relationship so that they can coach, help support you and help you develop and grow personally as well as professionally, give you that perspective. If you're lucky to get that, don't miss that opportunity. Ask for one. If the company you join doesn't have mentorships, find a senior leader that you respect and you feel like there could be something, and ask them directly, you mind being my mentor? Can we talk once a month about something, 1 hour, and just want to have your opinion on what I'm doing? Yeah. Oh, so many questions. I want to answer everything. Okay. Do I have time for commercial break? No, I don't. Okay, I'll skip this one. I want to keep going because I realize I'm just talking and talking so much. Okay, let's move on to healthcare. I didn't talk too much about healthcare, but I need to tell you a bit about that experience in case you're curious to join this industry. What do you think are the differences between medical device and pharmaceutical? So pharmaceutical drugs, right? Medical device, everything that looks like an equipment. What are the difference between these two industries? They're both healthcare, but they're vastly different. How? The law, yeah, law and regulations, correct. So that's a big difference. B2B and B2C, not so much this one actually. A little bit in the marketing sense. I'll talk about that because in drugs, yeah, you have these ads on TV about, that's actually the commercial break I had. But in the end, as a company, you still market to doctors and nurses and healthcare professionals. So in terms of B2B and B2C, it doesn't change so much, except for the communication channel, but the business is about the same. Economies of scale, a little bit, I'll talk about this. Regulatory, yes. Processes, marketing. Margin, yes. Money. Okay, I think these are good ones. Okay, so this one is more like, this is not personal opinion. This is sort of facts and stuff I've learned. So a few differences between the two. In my view, they're vastly different. And I've been headhunted many times to join pharma by many companies. I've never gone there because I've talked to some of the pharma colleagues we hired in our med device companies, and I was like, I don't think this is for me. They're vastly different also in the way you work, and this was what was important to me. So some of the things I've seen. So the most fundamental thing that is different is what drugs do is that they impact people at the chemical level, right? It's drug, it's a chemical that you use through the pill or injection is something you put in someone's body. So the mechanism is actually quite simple and very, it's a simple thing. It's a molecule does something to your body. Mechanical is what medical devices are. And so this is another example of a product we sell for ICUs. And this one is quite complex, but it's typical of what a medical device is. A medical device is, it's a device. So what is it? Why is it so different? It's so different because the medical device depends on the quality of the operator, the efficacy, the efficiency, the knowledge of the operator to administer the therapy. You give a pill to someone, it's going to work or it's not going to work. It doesn't depend on the person doing it, on the infrastructure around the patient to deliver that therapy. So that's a fundamental difference between the two that will define how the industries and working for that industry is fundamentally different. One is very tech heavy and relies a lot on the user. The other one is just a chemical. So consequence, another aspect of it, and a sort of a consequence of that is putting a chemical inside someone's body is something that is scary. So you're going to take 12, 20, 25 years to go from the idea to the actual market release. You know, the cycle of development, I think you've heard that, takes forever. Not only development, but trial, error, and then clinical studies to prove that they're safe, and then that they actually do what they're supposed to do. And then you need to test it with enough people, patients, so that statistically you can prove that it actually does some good. The medical device approach is much shorter. You develop a machine, you just test it, you do it, and then you teach users how to apply it. You do test for safety, but you don't need that very long cycle. So the time to market is vastly different. And you can imagine that if the time to market of a product is different, it shapes the company differently. If you're going to release a product like this, like regularly, or if you have to invest now for a product you're going to launch in 20 years, the mechanics of the company you work for are different. Another issue related to the aspect of one being a chemical and one being mechanic related to the user and the infrastructure is a drug works theoretically for everybody. Every person in the world will benefit from that drug if they can afford it and if they have access to healthcare. Medical devices typically have a very different applicability depending on where they are, depending on the country, the infrastructure, the people, the education system, the money, of course, like for drugs, but everything else. I'll take example of the device I was showing you before. That device uses water from the country to mix it with a drug and then put it into the blood. Depending on the quality of the water you have in a country, you can use or you cannot use it. Depending on the quality of the nurses you have, how many nurses you have in an ICU, this machine will work or will not work. So medical devices are typically much more, the market of medical devices is much more diverse and much more complex than a drug market, which Tylenol will work for everybody. Let's just launch it everywhere in the world. Another big difference, again, related to that fundamental difference is the way you run clinical studies and you prove that the product actually is worth the money you're going to put in it. For drugs, you basically always check a drug for safety or efficacy against a control. Control can be itself. So how sick was I before I took the drug? How better am I after I take it? Or randomized against someone else. So I take the drug, they take a placebo. Am I doing better than them? And you do that for a large population. You randomize, you double blind, which means as a patient, I don't know if I had the placebo or the drug, and my doctor, double blind, doesn't even know if I got the drug, the doctor, only the tool does. At the end of it, you say statistically, yep, this one is efficacious by X%. Very familiar with, we're very familiar with that since COVID, right? In medical device, you don't have that luxury because there's so many other factors that can alter whether a medical device will do what it's supposed to do against the user, infrastructure, how it's been delivered, in what context, that it's really hard to do all these massive studies that prove that A is better than B. So we rely a lot on equivalence to previous tech or similar technology. Of course, there are studies that are done in the same way as pharma, but not to the same depth because of the complexity of doing it. There's so many other factors that can alter a study that the quality of the science between medical device is very different from the drugs. Another aspect which was mentioned by someone in the chat is the amount of money that is at stake. Not only how much money a drug company will make, but how much money they need to invest 20 years ahead in the hope that the drug will become a blockbuster. So yeah, Pfizer launches Viagra and boom, they become the best company in the world. And recently they had a vaccine, so great for them. But similarly, some companies invest so much and then the blockbuster doesn't come and they just die. Although their margins are enormous, but the stakes and also how it defines how people work inside the company, how many consultants, how many people doing some very tiny part of a job you will have, is very different than a medical device company where there's not so much money, but you have much more diversity and richness in the job that you do because you don't have these margins to hire 10 marketers, 10 regulatory people, and 10 finance people. You're just going to work with one, but that person better be good. So the money is also a curse. It's not only something great. You're going to be paid well, but it's going to come at a toll. And there are things that are common between the two. It's healthcare, so it's about ethics, it's about compliance to regulation that was mentioned. In both cases, and I really like healthcare, and I encourage you, if that's attracting to you, to try it. It's a very complex business. Selling a drug, selling a medical device is interesting because you're trying something that helps patients. So there's always that notion, that tension between money and doing the greater good. And you're selling to a doctor, a nurse, a patient, a hospital. You're trying to convince a government, an MOH employee that they should change a regulation to help. There is a sense of purpose behind it, but it's complicated and therefore interesting. It's intellectually really interesting to be in healthcare because it's never simple. So that's some of the highlights that I could think about of why healthcare is cool, but also drugs, huge impact, massive impact, but and you'd be paid well in pharma, but it's almost too big to me. At least that's my choice, my personal thing. I like medical device. It's nitty-gritty, it's small. We don't make so much money, but it's fun. It's like you go there and try to sell a thermometer. It's tough, but it's your doing. Okay, and I don't think I'll go to 7, but I'll try to do 6. Okay, next one. Oh, so this one I'll give you. This is one of the best advice I ever received, and I was lucky. It was my second boss who gave it to me. Once you're in a company, once you're in an organization, what should you do to get your next job? So you have that job, you want it, right? What do you need to do to get it? I'm so happy I'm going to get to share that with you today. Networking, be brave, ask for it. Yes. Hard work and network. Is that a catchphrase? Be yourself, kind, and help others. Likun, yeah, but the world is tough out there. Ask somewhere else? What do you mean? Show your capabilities. Okay, so one of the two. So I wanted to give you 2 things. One of the 2 is in there. I haven't seen the most important sentence that my boss told me that day. Okay, I'm going to give it to you. So landing your next job only takes 2 steps. The first one you have, which is do your current job well. No matter what your next job, no matter what it is that you want, if you don't do your current job well, you don't even have a voice. Show that you can do what you are asked to do, even if you like it, even if you're not even adequate, even if you're a wrong hire, just get the first job done. Okay, so first do your work, be recognized for it, and then you can even start thinking about the next step. But the most important thing is look like you can do your next job. And the way my boss told it to me, actually, his exact sentence is, if you want a job, start doing it now. Don't wait for someone to give it to you. So I translate that a little bit differently, saying look like you can do your next job. And that it spans a long, there's degrees of that. The most basic degree is dress for the job. You've heard that sentence. What does it mean? It means not only dress, put a tie or whatever, but look like you are the person for the job. I'll give you an example. Your entry-level job, you want to be you want to be a leader, you want to be a manager, sound like one. Train yourself. When you go in front of people and you talk to them, sound like you are at that level already. Don't sound like you're a low-level employee. Be like the person that you would picture being in your next job. Because people will not give you a job because they think you can get to it. they'll give it to you because they think you can do it on day one, right? So not some, otherwise they would hire someone from the outside, has already done it, they can do it on day one. Why would they hire you to potentially take the time to train you and get it done? They might as well hire someone who can do it. So how do you do that? Start doing it. So what does it mean? But I cannot do it. I have that other job to do. Yeah. But what you're going to do is say again, maybe that's the wrong example, but I know you want to be a people manager, right? So that's you're a single contributor. You want to be a people manager. How do you start doing it when you don't have authority about anybody else? Ask to get an intern. Ask to have a young employee that you can coach and help. That's being a people manager. What was I saying? I was distracted by Ian because he's sending me a text. But no, I'm back on track. Start doing it, start that you can show it, and that you'll learn through the process, but people will change the way they see you. And when the opportunity comes, so one day a job opens and HR, the top management is going to look in the organization, who could we tap into who can take over that job? And they'll say, that person, because remember they did this, which is, that person can do it. Because you had that little extra project, right? A very good trick is I'm in sales, I want to go in finance, nothing to do with sales. You go to talk to the finance director and say, hey, I was thinking about this. Could we have a project where I work on this one? And you just try your hand at something. People will remember that. You want a job, start doing it before, and when the opportunity will open, they'll give it to you. How did I do that on my career that I tell you before? I wanted to come here. So when I was in Latin America, I thought, hey, Latin America, emerging markets, Southeast Asia, emerging markets. I put everything I could in there, and I did presentations about how I developed the markets, the particularly emerging markets in Latin America. I connected with network, good one, with the Southeast Asia counterpart, and I built that reputation of someone who understands emerging markets. The job opened, it was offered to me. You start doing it, right? Put yourself out there. I'm currently doing it now. This is the next job I'm going after. And I talked to my boss. I said, could you give me a little bit of what you do? Delegate more to me. I'll prove to you. Do it. Wow, I'm getting all excited. Okay, Ian gave me an authorization. If you allow me, I'll try to be fast, but give me a few more minutes because I really like my question 7. Okay, question 6. This one is a bit cliche. Okay, still, what should you always do to become a better leader or a leader? Okay, now we're talking about leadership, right? What are the things you should always do all along your career, not to get that job, but what do you need to do to become a leader or a better one? What is a leader for you? What do leaders do differently from other people? Empathetic, listening skills, trust and inspire, listen. Yes, listen. Motivate, inspire, enable, yes. I like that nobody said, keep the information in control and don't say anything. Good. Yeah, that was the right mindset. Okay, I'll move on. This is a bit easy, but I try to summarize. And again, I'm trying to go a level deeper. I love that catchphrase, stay curious. I think, again, personal thing, right? I think leaders keep learning. So stay curious. I just like the way it sounds, but it's about staying curious about yourself. You will never be done with understanding who you are, never. You'll start with low awareness, but listen, right? Many of you talk about listening. Ask everybody else, and if they will not answer, try to get the answer without them expressing it. What do they think about you? How do you come across? What are your strengths? Always ask for feedback. Don't listen to, it's not true. Listen to the positive feedback. It feels good, but really listen to the negative one, because very few people will tell you exactly what they think. So they're going to make it sound good, but look for that criticism in there. Always ask, if you have subordinates, people reporting to you, ask them first, what type of leader am I? What type of manager am I? Tell me where I'm failing, what I can get better. You learn about yourself and you learn how to be better for them. But learn about them, right? Emotional intelligence is something I mentioned before. Understanding other people, where they're coming from, the culture, the history, what motivates them, what makes them tick, what they hate, what they don't like, what they like. Know about them. Understand. If you understand people individually, you understand group dynamics. A leader needs to inspire others. You can only inspire people if you understand what drives them and what drives them individually and together. You need to get really good at understanding people in general. Stay curious about the big picture. You cannot be a leader in any organization if you don't extract yourself from what you're responsible for and you don't get the big picture. It's tough. Understand what the CEO of your company is thinking about. Personal example, I hate numbers. I'm very bad at finance. I taught myself to understand what a P&L is, and what is you need that. You're not strategic, you have to be strategic. You're not about multicultural, you have to try it. Get the big picture. It will bring a dimension, a maturity, and understanding of things that you need to have if you want to be that leader that people listen to, because you have that extra dimension that you're bringing to everything that they're thinking about. And stay curious about scare you. I think someone put that. Put yourself at risk. Not completely. Try a little bit, try something new, try something different, put yourself out there. You will learn and you'll stay on your toes. Stay curious. Okay, which brings me to my last one, which is completely off, but this is something that I more and more passionately believe. This one will be the least articulated of all of my arguments tonight. Please stick with me. In almost all organizations, women are discriminated against. True or false? And I'm ending on a controversial one. And I'm not going to check if the answers is coming from women or men based on your first name. It's not going to look. And I see a mix. I see a fairly balanced mix. It's interesting that tonight I had a lot of 50-50. I like what Guillaume is saying about the country, the culture, the context. Very important. Okay, my opinion, and this is in purpose a provocative question or provocative hook, but conscious, yes, Adrienne. Okay, here's my answer. And as I said, not very structured, but this is something I really wish I knew before. As a man, as a relatively white guy, coming from a rich country, I really, really, really underestimated how much of a challenge it is to be a woman anywhere in the world, in whatever company you are, in whatever organization it is. And I'll start mentioning this, talking about equity and equality, just in case any of you are not familiar, but I think it's a good starter. We talk a lot about gender equality and making sure women are paid the same, women are treated the same, they're not harassed, of course, but what is equality? Equality is mean you do the same job, you pay the same thing. So in that illustration is what you get on the left, right? You do the same job, whether you're tall, medium, or short, you get the same box to step on it to try to reach that apple. Equity means no matter where you start, no matter what, you didn't choose to be short or tall. You're given a tool that allows you to reach that apple. Okay, what does it mean when you talk about gender equity? It means that women, compared to men, in whatever society, almost 98% of societies in this world have been discriminated against for ages. And there's a cultural baggage, there's a cultural and societal weight that surrounds them that men don't have. And equality means I give you the same thing. Equity means I compensate for everything else. And it even goes to something that are as simple as biology. At the risk of making maybe some of you a bit uncomfortable, I think you're young, so you should be okay. But women have periods every month. And to some women, it's really uncomfortable. And it can be 1 month different from the other one. It can be debilitating. It can happen the day you need to. It can happen at the worst moment. Men don't have that. Just that very simple, tiny thing that sounds tiny for men, and we don't even think about it, has an impact on how women perform at work or how women feel in their life. That's one example. Another very obvious example is women carry babies, right? You want to have a baby, however, your husband is fantastic at home, you're going to carry that baby, you're going to be off work for 4 months, you're going to feel miserable maybe to 2 to 6 before. And when you go back to work, you'll probably be tired for 4 months because you're the one feeding your baby at night. And your husband can be the best ever. You're doing this and your career is almost on hold for 9 months and you're having the second baby in 2 years. So you've lost like 1.5 years of career acceleration because you cannot work 150% of your time. You can work only 100%. There are things like this. And then not even going about culture, expectation from your parents, the fact that even in a society that I really like, how in Singapore, it's way less distorted than many other places I've been to, but even here, the expectations put on women is really different than it is on men, from your parents, your colleagues. I see some of the worst discrimination coming in my company, international, American, global, based in Singapore, coming from women against other women. So how do we change that? First, by being aware. So that's why I wanted to end with that. I could speak for 2 hours about this. I'm not going to do it. I have 1 more minute. But what I hope is at least putting that in your mind. When you're going to start work, when you're growing up and everything, please remember this, that you're probably assuming too much. And I'm talking to you guys. Women are really aware. It's our fight. It's not their fight. We are the reason why this has happened. It's for us to fix. And it's for us as families to educate our kids and to talk to younger people like I'm doing today about this issue. There is no easy solution. And it's just all of us, if we're at least aware, that slowly we can work to make it better. And I'll end up on this. I'm out of breath.
Thank you for your wonderful presentation, Jacky. Ting, would you like to actually start off the Q&A session?
I'm sorry. Do you mind staying a bit longer? I know it's late now. I really talked too much.
Yeah, it's fine. I think they found it very, very interesting. Now I just have to find the questions from all the answers in the chat group, starting from the beginning.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Remember some things I thought.
Okay, so
maybe if you can put it back if you remember. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No worries. Lee Kuhn was asking, what are some things you think you and your family lost by being so international?
Oh, yes, that's a, that's a painful one. I have a lot of friends, like probably many of you, from uni. My closest friend, either from high school or from uni, and almost all of them are still in France. When we go back, during summer and all that, and we meet with them, we feel different. We really feel different. I think this experience we've had as a couple have built us so much. But it's hard to have conversations. And I'll give you an example of COVID, right? And you know about how disinformation and all that, and being in Singapore first. I mean, by the way, if any of you has any doubt, the way the government handled COVID is amazing. I think we're one of the luckiest country ever. But also having that perspective, right? Understanding the French perspective, because I look French news, the US perspective, and all this, that's a perspective you don't have when you live in France, or when you live in Ukraine, I have Ukrainian friends, same thing. Then I go back and we have this discussion, and it's hard. We're not on the same wavelength. So it's tough. So the sad conclusion I come to now is my best friends, if I want to build good friends from now on, needs to have a little bit of an international flavor. Otherwise, there is a difference. So that's something you lose. You become different from many people who don't have that experience, and it segments a little bit.
Okay.
Wow.
Thank you for that. Also good opportunities to make new friends.
But I mean, it's great, right? I mean, it's fantastic, but yeah, you need to know.
Okay. And then Toma asks, if you could go back in time and change something related to your personal or professional life, what would it be?
Not much, I think. I don't know how I come across, but I'm very happy. Taking care of my health a bit earlier, maybe. I think I waited for the circuit breaker to start running. That was long. Yeah, taking care of your health. I think if anything is finding the balance, finding the time. Yeah, I mean, that's the cliche, but yeah. You know, there are times in your life you want to be successful at work and improve yourself and you work like a mad person. It's maybe not worth it. So don't go too far in any direction, I would say. Or do it like for 6 months, but don't kill yourself for 3 years. But no, I'm happy. You know.
That's good.
Oh, yeah.
Good.
Don't have regrets, right? So don't have regrets.
So live life without regrets. Make your decision.
No, what? Looking back and being sorry about yourself doesn't do anybody any good.
Okay. Toma asks as well, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
I don't know. That's what is exciting. Maybe in Singapore. I really like this place. But I have had the taste of travel so much that I hope I can move again. So in 5 years, both of my kids will be somewhere else in uni. So I'm with my spouse, easier to move around. I'm hoping to work in Japan. Japan is the most crazy place ever, with the good and the bad, but it's such an enrichment to be in the middle of that society that is completely nuts, that I hope to be able to live there for another 5 years and really learn from that culture and the people and how they work and how they think. Yeah, I hope to be able to do that. If not, I'd love to be here. It's nice. And career-wise, I don't know. I keep telling my boss that I don't want a promotion, which drives her crazy. I really like the people I work with. We're doing something meaningful. It makes sense. So I'm a happy person because I found that place where I know what I want and I'm making the impact and I make enough money so that I don't have to worry about it. Oh, don't chase money. Chase the threshold that will make you happy. Another advice for free.
Okay. So Celine asks, do you have advice to be a future good mentor?
That's tough. I don't know. Actually, I've been thinking about this a lot because I've been mentoring younger people a lot in the past 3-4 years. It scares me. Being a mentor scares me because you can really have an impact on someone, good or bad. And it requires you really to understand them deeply and sometimes in a way that they don't understand themselves. And there's a little bit of manipulation involved where you don't tell them everything, not everybody can take it. I wish I had done a psychology course, but I think caring is number one. If I observe the other mentors around me that I find good, I think is really caring. If you really care for other people, if you really want to make a positive impact, you might not do a perfect job, but you'll probably do a good enough job. So if you really care for other people, you really want to give them that thing you have and you can help them with, you'll make it work. Yeah, then there are books and stuff. There are courses actually for mentorship. But I think it starts with you.
Thanks, Juan. Thank you for that. Carolina asks, which differences did you find between working in Japan and in the US?
Oh, it's good. Since we have 2 more hours, let me tell you. Wow. Oh, everything. Absolutely everything. These are 2 ends of the spectrum, right? And it starts with the culture. I mean, the work environment. Okay, so I'm not against the Americans, and maybe some of you are. Have to be careful. It's not about being better or worse, but there are some differences. For me, Japan and US are on 2 different ends of the spectrums when it comes to interpersonal relationships. I think the way I understand it, the American is the most self-centered, and I don't mean self-centered in a negative way, like the individual is extremely important to the American. The Japanese is very community-oriented, it's more Asian like we are here, but even more so, right? And that defines the way they work a lot. And then you have the other extreme, which is extremely conservative society in Japan. If you're a woman, you're gonna just, it's gonna be painful. In the US, way more, open to gender equality. Everything is so different. I mean, that's a long topic. But in terms of a transplant, if you go to the US, you will learn how to work with efficiency. The methods of work are amazing. They know business like nobody. I mean, they know business like nobody. Japan, it's probably going to be a painful experience on a professional level, but boy, it's going to be fun culturally. The Japanese are amazing people. They're just so naturally nice. I think the life experience of working in Japan is great. The work experience of the US is extremely formative. I would put it.
Okay, thank you. Lee Kun asks, how is COVID shaping the medical device production industry in terms of geopolitics or market share?
Oh, wow. Okay, so we do happen to have a product that is used in ICUs for patients with severe COVID. So one of the machines so a lot of the patients who are on ventilators, severe and require oxygenation, a portion of them require also kidney support. So we do that. So we're impacted in two ways, but in more general perspective, not only my business, but everything in healthcare, I think, okay, maybe I can say I see two impacts. The first one is an impact that we all feel, which is global supply. COVID really disrupted the global supply chain globally, in the sense that because we've optimized global supply for so many years, so that to make it so lean and so cost effective, if you don't have a container going from China to the US and coming back, something doesn't work. And for the past year and a half, it hasn't. Getting drugs, medical devices, anything from where they're manufactured, which is not where you live, to the place the patient is really painful. And for the next year, it's going to be tough to get drugs and medical devices anywhere in the world. It's going to be really expensive. So it's not only healthcare, but it does impact healthcare. The second thing which you hear in the news is the healthcare system has been stretched everywhere. A lot of patients have died that we don't talk too much about, weirdly enough. A lot of people have died. 10% of our patients in Europe are dead because they're all immunocompromised. So the hospital's revenues have decreased. The entire healthcare system is stretched. I think this will have a long-term impact in terms of the sustainability of the general industry. Now, the healthcare system will survive. There's autonomy in healthcare. Everybody's getting older and sicker. Some industries will do better than others. But I think it has raised the question of going for optimization of cost all the time and reducing the buffers in the system. Will it be in supply or in delivery of care? Especially in markets that are more privatized. So in the US, extremely privatized sector, they are suffering way more than Europe, where it's mostly public, right? So there's more buffer in the public system. But I think it will be tough. It would have been tough in Singapore if we had not managed the crisis so well. It would have been hard because we're in that middle ground, right? We're private and public at the same time. But yeah, I think it will have that impact. But in 3 years, we'll be back. I think.
Okay.
Wow, that was a deep question. Okay.
Right, so the last question from Liang Yao. Could you please share how you embrace the uncertainties in life, having difficulties facing risks and uncertainties?
We're gonna finish with that. Okay. Okay, that's very personal, right? That's a very personal question, but how do I embrace uncertainties in life? I think by building self-confidence, and this is something that can be learned, I think. I had the preconception when I was a kid that either you have confidence or not, or it's something that you have. No, you can learn to be confident. I think being confident will help you overcome anything, right? I know that if I lose my job and I have to go back to France because I lose my EP and everything, I can work in a restaurant and I'll be happy. There are other things I can do. It's about confidence in who you are, what you can be. And the second one is what I said before, is don't regret anything. So I don't know if that answers the question. That sounded very deep, but I think is be smart, but yeah, try it. I don't know.
But it sounds like it's also about being fluid, because it's not like your first instinct wasn't to go back to like a corporate job. It was, you know, if you can't, then there's always a way out. So it seems like you've got a very fluid mindset as well.
Yeah, and I go back to what I was saying before. If you know what your long-term goal is, and you have the patience to get there, and you have that, you know, like star that guides you, it helps you. I think it helps you that you know, it gives you the grit, right? You know you're going there. You're going to get there sometime. Okay, it's going to take me 20 years. Fine, I'll get there. I think that helps you, because if you bet everything on the next thing, then you're afraid of failure.
Absolutely.
But if you aim for way down the road, you can fail, you'll recover. I think maybe that helps. I haven't thought about this one, honestly, so it's a bit tough.
Those are very interesting questions.
Yeah. Whoa.
So, well, there are no more questions so far. So I'll just pass on the time to Ian to wrap this up. Ian?
Sorry I was so long. Thanks for sticking up with me.
No, it's okay. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much for a wonderful presentation, Jacky. I mean, with that, we have come to the end of our Zoom session. And to our students, please unmute your mics and please give Jacky a big round of applause to show our appreciation for him.
Thank you. No, thank you for staying. Sorry it's so late.
Thank you so much, everyone. Have a good evening. I hope this was inspiring and helpful for you. Yes.
One
Jacky.
last thing, because I saw a note and I really don't mind. You see my name, how it's written on the screen. There's only one of me on LinkedIn. If you want to get in touch with me, if you want to talk about anything, I'm super open to that. Find me on LinkedIn. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, students. Thank you. Goodbye for now.